Welcome to HighRoad U. At the U, HighRoad Solution believes that modern learning is all about being multi-channel, multi-format, and user-centric. We are creating educational content based on the content you want. Be sure to check out our future program schedule by clicking the HighRoad U resources link in the important information box on the top right-hand side of your screen. We are pleased to present today's webinar entitled Multi-Touchpoint Messaging with Suzanne Carawan, Chief Marketing Officer at HighRoad Solution. My name is Jeff Baker, and I will be your moderator for today's event. Today's presentation will last approximately 45 minutes and include a specific question and answer period at the end of the session. You may ask questions via the web conference system by typing your question into the Q&A box on the right-hand side of the screen and clicking the call-out button or hitting Enter on your keypad. These instructions will be repeated later in the program. If you have any technical questions during the event, please email support@highroadsolution.com. Today's webinar is being recorded, and all participant lines will be muted during the live program. Attendees of this live webinar presentation have also earned ASAE CAE credit. And now, I am pleased to introduce today's content leader, Suzanne Carawan. Having held global positions in the association, nonprofit, telecom, and event industries, Suzanne has the joy of crafting the brand story for many companies and C-suite executives, providing the strategic marketing plan and overseeing the execution of digital, event, content, and channel marketing programs. An expert in branding and go-to-market strategies, Suzanne has launched dozens of products and programs and brought several companies to the market. An active participant, member, and volunteer, Suzanne is a member of the American Society of Association Executives and serves on their Marketing and Exposition Council. Suzanne serves on the advisory board for the Event Alley Show and is a member of several event industry associations where she is a passionate advocate of event technology and marketing. And now it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to Suzanne.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks everybody for joining us today. One of my kind of favorite topics within kind of the modern communication umbrella, talking about multi-touchpoint messaging, and some of the things that have changed in today's world, and more so the opportunities it really now affords us to do better communication with either our current constituents or those folks that we would like to be our constituents, whether that means a customer, a donor, a member, a staff person, and what have you. So today we're looking at multi-touchpoint messaging, and we're calling it modern communications, and I'm going to encourage you to stop waiting for this because the tools are out there, and we can get to kind of a better state of living if we can adopt some of these principles that kind of now are the founding, or the guiding principles, I should say, of modern marketing. So let's get right to it. So first and foremost, before we even talk about multi-touchpoint, I want to go through a couple of exercises of talking about user-centricity and multi-channel, which is now kind of under this, if you want to think of it as a tripod of what is modern communication strategy. These are the three that we would pick here at HighRoad: user-centric, multi-channel, multi-touchpoint. And you hear us talk about these three things all the time. So I'm going to talk about each in turn, and we're going to end up talking about multi-touchpoint because I think to really understand it, we need to set the foundation first with these two other aspects. So why don't we start with user-centricity? And this is about now living user-centric design where it's not about you. And by you, I mean you, the organization. Typically, the blocking point with organizations is that they say, yes, of course, we've always been member-centric, but when it gets right down to the actual operations and logistics of it, 9 times out of 10 it comes back to, well, we can't do that. We know the member would like their email on Saturday. We know that the member would like to receive their newsletter, which they find very valuable, on a tablet, but we're just not there yet because our organization has constraints, we don't have the resources and whatnot. So what we're talking about now is actually, we understand for the most part that we need to be user-centric and member-centric, but that this, how do we now take this and inculcate it? So operationally, we're actually restructuring our association or nonprofit or higher education institution, whatever type of organization you have. How do we actually restructure it so we're actually designed around this idea of being user-centric? And that's, it's one thing to say you're user-centric and you understand their needs. It's another thing to design the business operations around that. So I'm going to give a bit of an example of what the transition is like, and just giving you a simple example that we can all go through, and maybe you can share as well within your own organization, because this is one of the key pieces of being able to evolve and move forward and do so well and be able to stay relevant with your organization long term is really being able to really get to the heart of being user-centric and how do you change what you, your organization, are offering and why you need to offer more. And by the way, this came directly out of many of our clients saying things like, well, why should I use Twitter? Or Twitter's on the list to use, or Facebook's on the list to use, or one day we'll use a responsive template for our emails, but not today. All of those things, when it gets on the bucket list of one day, sometime in the future, we want to talk about why these things are important to do now. So this is where that's coming out of. So I use this example to explain why one needs to adopt new things and take them in and do this. So we're going to have a little bit of fun because we're now talking about what's changed really, of course, is the user. And I think we can all understand what we're looking at here. We're looking at somebody who's watching TV while on the tablet and looking at Twitter and perhaps interacting with the TV and other people watching this particular TV program. Probably also maybe listening to the iPod. Probably the phone is right next to her right, et cetera, et cetera. So we understand, if we're just talking colloquially, if we're talking at a dinner party, we understand that our user experiences change individually, but somehow when it gets translated out to our members or donors, again, we get the blocking point of, well, I understand that this is reality of what we're looking at, but we can't get there yet. And so what we need to do as an association and a not-for-profit industry is start changing that mentality of saying we do have to change that. We cannot wait any longer because this is the norm and this is reality. And so, again, we're going to use an example of how to get there. And we're going to talk about, again, if we put this back into automation, which is the overarching theme of today, we're going to talk about why associations in particular are really automating today. And it's because they need to get to this multi-touchpoint, user-centric type of experience. So we'll build up to that. So the way we're going to look at that is going to do a quick imagination exercise. So if you want to think about it, we're just going to do a little, this has nothing to do with reality. We're just going to do this to understand this idea of moving to a user-centric mindset and how it's not about, in this particular case, the restaurant owner. So take a moment. Imagine that you own a restaurant. It can be whatever food you like. It can be in whatever location you want. But you're going to be a restaurant owner, and we're going to set up that you're going to establish this restaurant in, let's say, 1940. Okay, so 1940, you become a proud owner of a restaurant of whatever type of food that you're going to provide. And let's say that we're in the United States. We can go with a classic example of that. You're going to serve coffee, and that's going to be a total typical thing is found throughout all the restaurants that people established in the 1940s. So it's 1940. You start your restaurant. You're serving coffee. On your counter, you have an object that looks like this on the right-hand side, commonly known as sugar. And you have your coffee and you have your sugar and you give everybody a little carafe of cream. And life is really good. And that happens for years and years and years. You've got a booming business for 17 years or so, right up until about 1957. And all of a sudden, this new thing comes out on the market. So, let's say you established this in 1890. You could have been serving sugar the whole time. Everything was beautiful. You had coffee, sugar, and cream. Life was good. These are all the containers you needed to be able to serve your customer base. But in 1957, something comes on the market called Sweet and Low. And this new little pink packeted wonder sweetener comes in, and the marketing comes behind it, specifically targeting women who are watching their waistlines and telling them that, hey, excuse me, there's an alternative to just your regular sugar. So these women start talking, and this buzz happens, and they start buy Sweet and Low, and they bring it into their homes, and they do start seeing results, or at least it becomes a common thinking that there's results. And so they get together, and they start talking about it to each other. Now what happens now when these women go into your restaurant where now you only have sugar and coffee? Their need to trim their waistline or maintain their waistline has not changed, but you are no longer providing the alternative that they want to sugar. So they start doing what? They start asking you for sugar. Where's the Sweet and Low? We need the Sweet and Low. You as a restaurant owner have a decision to make. Do you now start stocking Sweet and Low, or do you just ignore all of these people, maybe 50% of your customer base, maybe 40%, who are asking you for something that you've never done before? So you have to make a decision. So maybe you decide, yep, we will start offering Sweet and Low, which doesn't seem like that big of a deal until the early 1980s come along, and here comes this blue thing called Equal. Well, now you're in a little bit of a bind because the one sugar shaker that you had before, and then the little pink packets that you could just bring out every now and again, now we've got this blue thing to contend with. which actually requires us to have new sugar holders and dispensers to now hold the pink packets and the blue packets. Now you as a restaurant owner says, well, I can ignore equal and not have it on the market because only 2 or 3 people are asking for it, or I can decide that I want to start carrying equal because I want to actually be innovative because now all of my other competitors, they serve sugar and sweet and low. So if I bring in equal, that's something different. And I'm showing that I really care about my customer base. I understand where food tastes and preferences are going, and I'm going to be able to offer something that's distinct and different that they might, maybe I'm the people that introduce them to equal. I get a little loyalty there. But I also have to adjust my operations because I have to now be able to offer this as well. So now I say, great, now I have to get a whole new dispenser where I now have the blue packets and the pink packets, and I still have the sugar container, and that seems great, but now I'm innovative. I have something new to tell my customers. I can tell them in the newsletter, hey, we now proudly serve equal. Maybe now we're making muffins with equal. Now we have all sorts of opportunities we can do because I couldn't cook before with sweet and low, but now I can with equal. And so that's great right up until the market changes again. And here comes 1998, and Splenda comes onto the market. At this point, as the restaurant owner, I say, you know, I have sugar, I have sweet and low, and none of these things have gone away. Everything's additive. I have now equal, and so now I have another option, a fourth option. Do I take it, yes or no? It's another kind of thing I have to stock and supply. My costs are going up. At this point, we get rid of the sugar container. They go to packets. You know, my inventory is higher, my costs are higher per cup of coffee, et cetera, et cetera. But at some point I say, well, maybe I should just go ahead and do it. It's yellow, it stands out from the crowd, and now I have a whole container filled with different types of sweetened options for those people drinking coffee or tea. And if you notice, even in there, stuck in on the sides is a picture of sugar in the raw, which then actually came into the 1970s, but because they had no marketing, it kind of stayed relegated over to the organic crowd, but is in fact in there now as an option at most restaurants that you go to. When you're asking for coffee, they bring you the whole container, and you can take your pick from what sweetener you want. Now, what does this have to do, of course, with today's communications, with digital marketing, with automation, et cetera? Well, you, the restaurant owner, have had to go through many a decision maker that you, the marketing and communications person at your association nonprofit, is also under the gun to do. Now, back when email came on, maybe you had print newsletters and print magazine, so everybody's been doing that. We don't remember a time we didn't. But when email came on the scene, somebody had to make the choice. Do they bring in email? Email seemed like a really low-cost way to distribute information, and so most organizations adopted it wholeheartedly. Well, then here comes the next thing. And even before that, we could have fax. So fax was adopted, and then email came in as another option. They adopted it. And then here comes, of course, social. And so somewhere along the way, social has kind of become like the sweet and low equal Splenda option, where we have so many channels we can choose from that we're starting to say, like, I don't know, we can't do too much, there's too many things, et cetera, et cetera. We're overwhelmed. And we come back to the blocking points of the organization as to what can we do now because we're overwhelmed with all of these things that we're supposed to be doing. But we remember back to our gal sitting in front of the TV with her tablet, with her phone next to her, and we say we're at a crossroads because we know the user's changed. We know we have all these channels we have to utilize, and somehow we have to make sense of these worlds now in a way that we can actually handle. Because the difference also is maybe unlike 50 years ago, we can't just go hire a bunch of people. Our people are so overtaxed already, and it's the most expensive resource we have. So we've got to find another way to merge all these channels and communication needs that we have. So set that little thought there in the brain for a second, and we'll come back to it and wrap it up when we start talking about automation. So we can agree at this point the restaurant owner has had to change over the years to meet demand, to stay competitive, to be innovative, to provide choice, and to understand our niche markets. Okay? So again, if we put now our association, nonprofit, marketer, communicator hat on, I think you can say, we're a little bit in the same situation. We have got to change. We can't keep saying it's on the list. The time is now, and we should change because the tools are out there and the data is there for us to do this. So that part's there. The infrastructure is there for us to take advantage of. The blocking point for most of us is still the internal organizational structure of not understanding that operationally we really do have to change the way we're going about communicating with our user. And that's the part that we're trying to forge ahead with here at HighRoad. So at the end of the day, the restaurant owner did become user-centric. They were meeting the demands of what their customers were saying. At the same time, they were creating demand for new things the customer didn't even know they needed. For example, Splenda, okay? We at the association level would say exactly the same thing. Not only do we have to meet the demands, but we have to create new things that people didn't know they needed, like the iPad. Nobody was sitting around demanding Apple to make the iPad, but wouldn't you know it, they created the iPad and, it's pretty useful. So organizations are in this twofold thing where they have to meet the demand of current need, but they also have to look to how can they get out in front of their consumer, that would be their member, donor, or et cetera, and create something that they really want and need and find valuable. Or I guess I should say, they really want, didn't know they need, but after they get it from you, they say, I need this, we have to keep it. Okay, so in order to become user-centric, what does that actually mean for an organization? Well, it really means you need to understand your segmentation. That is your data. Most of us in this world have phenomenal association management systems that we've spent more than $1 on investing in over the years. We've got rich data. It's there for us to mine and look at and be able to slice and dice. And so now's the time for us to be able to step back and really start looking at these things called buyer personas. For example, maybe we really want to invest in our young leadership program. Maybe that's one particular. Who's the typical person that is they join as young in their profession, they're young actually physically, they're early to the profession, and they actually want to really grow and develop quickly professionally. That could be one particular type of persona that we're going to go ahead and target. There might be another one, which is the person who's very senior in their career, looking to exit their regular kind of day job and move into more of a consulting role as their career kind of winds down and they near retirement or they go to a pseudo-retirement kind of stage. Maybe that's another buyer persona. Whatever these groups are, whatever these little target niche markets are that we either want to grow, sunset, mean kind of let them decline to the point where they're no longer there, or that we want to nurture and maintain, we need to really understand these groups very well, and then we need to create processes around these that allow us to target them and maintain organizational discipline. Maybe I shouldn't even say maintain, establish. That means that we say, no, we're going to target this particular young leadership group. We're not going to turn around tomorrow and start, sending a bunch of email over to, one particular group of people because they're unhappy about something. That's very difficult for organizations to understand, that you have to stay on this disciplined track in order to say, here's the group we want. We have to keep investing in them, keep nurturing them to get the return that we're looking for, right? You can't be all over the map, and you can't be all things to all people. We have to kind of pick and choose. The other thing it means is it can't just be one message. We can't go with the spraying bullets approach and say, well, you know what, we might leave someone out, or we really want everybody, so let's just send out one email and just keep sending the same email over and over with one message that doesn't really resonate with any one group, but it's neutral and nobody can really be upset with it. It's that type of no-risk approach, and that's actually one of the riskiest things you can now do in association nonprofit communications, because you're targeting no one. And it's like putting a tweet out there and having no hashtag on your tweet and having no Twitter handle associated to it. It's just going out into the ether, and it should be no surprise then that no one's opening your email, no one's responding back, and people aren't registering like they used to, right? Because you're not speaking directly to anyone, and we need to get really good at speaking directly to the user groups that we really want to do something with. So let's just, as a great example, let's say that you're still worried about your checkbook members, those people that just pay every year but you never hear from, and you're still trying to convert them to be engaged. Let it go. Let them keep writing the checks, and instead let's go after the people who are engaged or who are on the cusp of being engaged or show some sort of indicator that they could be engaged, and let's focus in on those people. Because that 10 to 20% of your population, that's going to be the group to be able to move the brand forward. But that takes a lot of discipline to say, okay, that means that all members are not created the same and things like that. But that is part of becoming user-centric, is understanding those niche groups. Now, all this is wonderful, and we have, again, the tools to do it. We've got the data to do it. Everything there is set from a infrastructure standpoint for us to do it. The part we have to be able to do is free up our own staff members to have the time, to have the creativity to be able to look at buyer personas, and we have to have that emotional discipline to be able to go to this new way of managing our membership bases and managing our communications. So the key question becomes, how do we get that time, right? Because remember, operationally, there's a couple new ways you can get time into an organization, right? And time, I would say, is probably our most expensive resource to date. You can hire new people, and we just said for most organizations that's not really an option. You could get rid of people that make a lot of money and try to replace them with 2 or 3 people who make less money and equal that one salary. But again, such a difference in skill level and knowledge level, probably not, so that's not going to do it. Because again, the type of work has changed in doing these types of communications. What we don't need anymore are the worker bees who are good at just punching buttons and doing like kind of factory work. We need people on staff who are thinking all the time, who are very, very creative. So what that means is we need to take the staff members who are more senior or get more senior people who are thinking at the strategic and creative level and free up their time so they're not doing redundant tasks, so they can do this type of work. And that's what we would say at HighRoad is we are absolutely trying to push this revolution forward to be able to empower the people that are already on staff who know the members the best, who know the data, who know the communications, who understand the channels, to be able to free up their time so that they can do more. Okay, but becoming user-centric, that's what the capacity building side of it that the organization needs. Now, the next side of that is that you need to be multi-channel. So multi-channel, I think, is a lot easier to understand than kind of this, what you need to do to be user-centric. So multi-channel is, I'm going to use the weather channel as a case study about what it means to be multi-channel in today's world. And then I'm going to introduce an exercise, and it's really a method, it's really a technique that many marketers are now doing in order to, one, really get clear on the experience of their current members of what they're doing and what their members could be doing, as well as probably best of all to really show it as evidence to others that they're speaking to inside the organization, board, et cetera, about what is currently happening and all the opportunities that they're missing. So let's take a moment and talk about being multi-channel before we pull it all together. So the reason I picked, by the way, the weather channel is because their demographics are not they are not, the 23-year-old millennial generation, et cetera. They are really, for the most part, what we hear over and over and over again of associations saying, but my members aren't, digitally smart. My members aren't, et cetera, et cetera. But the weather channel, actually, their demographics are very much the people between 35 and 55 plus, okay, which for most, especially professional associations and trade associations, they would say that is the vast majority of their membership and probably skewing upwards even into that mid-50s and up. And so that's the big chunk of the weather channel's viewer demographic. They also tend to be 40-some% have attended college. We've got an equal split between female and male. Homeowners, and have pretty good sizable household incomes. Again, very much kind of looking like the profile of a member of a professional organization who wants to invest in their career, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so we're going to use that as kind of a similarity so we can at least just get rid of some of the haters out there who are saying, well, this has nothing to do with my population, because I think we can say many people do use the weather channel. So let's go through that and talk about what channels does the weather channel use. So I think we can all start with the ones that we understand, very well. So clearly we've all probably seen Jim Cantore on the Weather Channel forecasting from different places in the weather, et cetera. We probably all remember back when he was at Battery Park and about to get washed away. So we're all familiar that the television is a channel. I think we'd all agree with that. The Weather Channel also has a website. I think many of us understand that and maybe use it, maybe don't. But we know the website is out there, and if we needed to, it's sitting at our desk, we could go out and access it and get a website, get information on the weather, by the way, anywhere in the world, right? We understand that the Weather Channel is like the expert on weather anywhere we go. But if I wanted to go really local, maybe I go to my local, TV station, their website, et cetera. But we understand that the Weather Channel, their job is to be the place to get information on weather all over the world. We also know that there's a mobile app. So we also know that we could be on the go and download the mobile app and be able to find out where the weather is happening where I am or to where I'm traveling, et cetera, et cetera. We also understand that the Weather Channel has radio stations, and they often do inserts into other programs. So maybe I'm listening to NPR, and then they come in and they say, hey, here's local on the 8th. You know, the weather is 82 degrees. We'll be back in another 8 minutes, and this was brought to you by the Weather Channel. Okay, so another way to communicate information. The Weather Channel, not surprisingly, like hopefully almost all entities on Earth at this point, have a Facebook page. And the Facebook page has lots of information on weather, as well as they extend the brand and allow people to have their own Instagram photos that they've put up. So now they've had an interactive channel that they've created so that people who are also interested in the Weather Channel can snap their photos and send them back. And it's not just now a one-directional way of communication. They've opened up now a bi-directional communication channel with fans of the Weather Channel. They've also, here we were talking about Instagram, so they're allowing their, if you quote-unquote, members of the Weather Channel's Facebook page to take photos locally, post them through their Instagram, and then place them through their Facebook page. So this is still the Weather Channel's Facebook page, but they put in a feed here for Instagram and pulling that in. So now you have social media channels that are allowing each other to be cross-represented within that particular channel. So I might be a Facebook fan, but I don't use Instagram, but I'm no longer missing out because the Weather Channel has set it up so that anybody using Instagram is pulling in the photos there and placing it on Facebook so that I also can see that. And you'll see when you get into social channels, the cross-referencing, the movement of data between them is very pervasive, and it's because of this big reason we're going to talk about that being user-centric and allowing people to basically trip over your information so as not to miss them. So keep in mind this one in the future. Instagram page being represented and published through the Weather Channel's Facebook feed. Okay, and then of course Twitter is happening on top of this, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so can we agree that all of these are channels that we just talked about? And I think we'd say yes, we can all agree on that. So the Weather Channel now is sitting here and saying, okay, they said to themselves, I am like the restaurant owner. I can no longer just be in a situation where I just have radio because TV came along. So they said, okay, I'm now going to add TV. And I understand that the Weather Channel came after these things, but just go with me. So they said, I'm going to add TV. And then TV and radio were kicking along. And then the website came out, and they said, yep, let's use that. Let's add that into our portfolio. And then mobile came in as an option, and social media came in as an option. And they said, you know, maybe some people actually want to opt in and be alerted if there's going to be bad storms coming, right, where they want to know that. So maybe we want to introduce mobile messaging and push it out to those people who said they want to receive it. And again, let's open up bi-directional communication channels, et cetera. So they were open to morphing along and evolving to having more and more and more communication channels. Is it more work? Yes, which means something's got to give. So they looked at automation, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But more importantly, they accepted the fact that they stopped looking for what's going to fall away, and they understood that all of this is additive going forward, and that they have to change their approach because the people that they want to contact want to use them throughout the day. Or more importantly, they'll use something else if the Weather Channel is not present in that particular user's life. So their question to themselves is not how do they open my email, it's how do I get in front of them so I'm relevant throughout their day, and how can I look at that in a comprehensive way. Okay, which leads us to talking about being multi-touchpoint. And multi-touchpoint is all about again, again, again. And they say, you know, people need to hear things 8 times in a row before it really kind of sticks and connects and whatnot. And in today's world, it's probably even worse because we're all busy. And the user today has low to no attention span, low to no memory. Maybe some of you can relate to this. And the other thing is that we live in a world where there's a high number of alternatives. There's a high, you know, volume of information. You know, I don't have to buy vitamins from just one provider. I could get genes from a gazillion places around the earth. You know, I can buy books from anywhere online. There's no one thing anymore. It has to be. There's very few of those. So therefore, with that world of information, with that world of everything coming at us, where we're not necessarily as brand loyal as we used to. You've seen the power of the user increase because we have so much information. We can do a better job price shopping, comparison shopping. We know if people are lying to us, et cetera. And so what you've seen is the power of the brand telling people what to do, saying, you become a member of my organization because we have networking and education. That has completely declined in power because that particular member knows that's not the case anymore. They know you're not the only game in town for networking. Maybe there's a meetup group that just formed on its own. Maybe there's a LinkedIn group. Maybe there's people out on LinkedIn are talking about some new book that your association didn't publish. So they have all these other ways of gathering information together, and so you're seeing now the power has shifted from the brand dictating and demanding brand loyalty from the consumer who doesn't have, who at some point didn't have any choice, right, to now the actual member saying, hey, what are you guys using? And looking now to other people for more reliance as to what is actually fact out there or what is a good value of their time and money. And that's called moving brand equity into the referrals and word of mouth. Okay, so now in order to establish a strong brand, the brand itself can't say, buy my brand, come to my event, buy my book. The organization can't demand it. The way you're going to build your organization's brand or, maintain it or I guess evolve it is now through the word of mouth of the other members and what they are advocating about you. Now that is a different world in which to market. And for many of us, it's rather unfortunate because it's more complicated, takes more time, and it's far more fuzzy than it used to be. Could be we just sent out direct mail and people registered for the event. That worked great. Then we said, let's just send out email, and they registered for the event. And if we didn't see the numbers we wanted, what do? Send out more email. And unfortunately, we're just not seeing the returns that we used to because all of these things behind the scenes have changed. So if our answer always is let's send more email as our example, or let's just keep discounting, we need to stop the madness and rethink our communication strategy because we're going down the path that is just going to commoditize our association brand further. And what we want to do, of course, is build equity in a different way. So this is the fact of who we're dealing with now with multi-channel, with the need to be user-centric, et cetera. It's a far more complicated landscape. So the modern method of doing this is understanding that the user has all of these roads to communication, all of these roads to your brand, all these roads of journeys of possibility of how they can experience you. And your goal, just like the Weather Channel, is to be there when they're there. Okay, so if it means that you have to be in 7 different social networks, then so be it. That's what you need to be if the members you want in the targeted groups are on those individual networks. Okay, and that's the key. Can't be everything to everybody. But if the target members that you want are somewhere where you're not, that's a gap and that's a problem that you need to solve because that modern method is understanding and accepting. We have a very complicated landscape with a lot of different roads. That's okay. What's important to us is we find out what are the right roads where the people that we want are using. Where are they that they're traversing so we can be there and they can basically trip over us in their daily life to say that was valuable and build the reliance that when they're there, we'll be there. So what does that look like kind of in practical applications? So people are now understanding that, and they're saying, okay, so what we need to do is identify these roads, if you will, understand that it's not going to be one way. It's not going to be the one email that's going to be the way to send home the message, that we need to have a consistent feel across these different avenues. Even if they're slightly different, that's okay. We just have to unify the feeling of it to aggregate to and create this one consistent impression. And that, again, the main thing they take away is that when they look outside and they go, it looks like it might snow, that the first thing they think is the Weather Channel. And it doesn't matter if they're going to look us up through the website, tune into us on the radio, pull out their mobile app, it doesn't matter. Look at Twitter. It doesn't matter what that is. They don't care. They just want the Weather Channel to pop into that person's mind when they see the sky and they have that need to say, what's going on with the weather? That scenario is the one I want you to take home, because that's where your association or nonprofit brand wants to be when that person has that need. Okay, so it's different than just constantly push, push, push on that member. It's saying, hey, when you need us, you got to think us number one. We got to be number one in your mind as to where you're going to get that information, that we can solve the pain point that you have. Okay, so how are organizations doing this? This is the technique I was talking about. They're using something called journey mapping. And I've taken just drawing, showing you how low-tech this can be, but what a powerful way to do this, this technique is. So if you start down in the lower left-hand corner, I've taken somebody who might be a Weather Channel user, and I've actually mapped out their day, going through a series to understand what are maybe the touch points and the channels that they use throughout the day. So I can understand, as the Weather Channel, how can I create a program for them that's user-centric that we can deploy and automate so that we can actually make sure that they are encountering us as many times as possible. So in the lower, so the little story might go like this. This person, and we're starting in the lower left-hand corner, and we're going to just follow the arrows. This person wakes up. It's not sunrise yet. Maybe it's winter. 6 a.m., they have their coffee. They pull out their phone that's right next to them. Probably they slept with it. They use the alarm to wake up. They look at their mobile app even before they get out of bed to find out what is the weather going to be like, because they want to know what to put on, right? So they want to know that. So they get prepared. They use their mobile app for the Weather Channel. They go downstairs, they get ready, they leave. If you live in the Washington, D.C. area, you can see you've gotten into your car, and maybe you sit there for 2 or more hours, depending on what traffic is, 7 to 9-ish a.m. They're sitting in traffic. They hear the Weather Channel through radio updates while they're listening to their regular radio broadcast, let's say. So they've now had 2 touch points, if you will, from the Weather Channel. They're sitting at their desk now around 11:45. They're starting to get hungry, and they want to go outside. They're working in downtown D.C. They want to go and meet a friend for lunch. They're going to walk a couple blocks. They want to know what the weather is. They look up the Weather Channel on their website, on their computer, to find out what's going to happen. The Weather Channel says it looks like rain. Could rain, maybe 60% chance. They say, because of that, I'm going to make the decision to bring my umbrella. Now they move over about 12:42. They meet with their friend. The 2 of them are talking. They're having a great lunch. While I'm talking to my friend, I get an SMS alert, or I get a little mobile message that pops up on my mobile phone saying that, hey, it's about to start raining. And I go, oh, gosh, good thing I brought my umbrella, because, hey, I looked at the website earlier, and I brought my umbrella, and my friend didn't. So that's great. So I walk out in the rain about 1:05. I'm walking back to the office. Reality hits. It starts raining on me. Luckily, I have my umbrella. So I say, you know what would be great? My friend, I was making fun of them that they didn't have their umbrella. I'm going to take a picture of me, selfie, take my picture, post on Instagram. I'm going to tag it to my friend, trash talk them, tweet it, and then I send it to my friend who's gotten back to their office at about 1:17. They get an email that includes the things for their update from Twitter, the update to look at Facebook, as well as the photo. They start laughing, and they don't think about the Weather Channel again until 5 o'clock. Before they leave work for their commute home, they want to know what it's going to look like. Now both my friend and I both now look at the website for the Weather Channel, because my friend has understood if they had only looked at the Weather Channel before, they would have not gotten into this mess of not having the umbrella. And then again, I go home, have my commute, and I don't think about the weather again until 10 o'clock at night, where I'm sitting there in front of my TV with a glass of wine, and I say, what's tomorrow going to bring me? And I check the weather before I go to bed, right, by watching TV. Very typical scenario of somebody's possible interaction with the Weather Channel. The Weather Channel was smart enough to map this whole thing out, and then what they do is they go through and they look and number the number of touch points the Weather Channel has had as a brand through that person's day. And they say, are we doing everything we can to get this person what they need? So you can see 6 times they've had a touch point with this particular type of user throughout the day. That's great brand awareness and great brand equity. If that user is relying on them to take action of how they're going to make decisions, and that user believes in them enough to be able to refer it to another friend who just gave me another user. That's picture perfect of what I'm looking for as a modern communicator. And the piece there then that the weather channel might say is where I don't have the touch points in this whole social media arena, what could I be doing here to make sure that when that person tags that photo, that they're including the weather channel as part of that? And that might be something that they're now saying from a brand standpoint of how do we further engage, how do we further have that experience so that our brand is consistent as many touch points as I can get, where that person is saying, wow, that is a useful brand in my life. That's what they're going for. By the way, ESPN does the same thing, CNN does the same thing, Nike does the same thing, Under Armour does the same thing, Apple does the same thing. Any of these brands that are, Starbucks, oh, great one. Starbucks does the same thing. They're thinking about how do I do this and how do I make my brand as relevant as possible in your life. So again, if you're saying, hey, we're the association, it's a lot easier to understand, Starbucks, which is coffee, and how it would fit through the morning time, then I need some at lunch, and then afternoon time. And you say, well, we sell knowledge. Well, again, think about CNN or Wall Street Journal. So do they. They're able to find a way to stay relevant through different channels and being user-centric. So let's keep going with this idea and start tying it in with automation. So before I do that, just here's actually what a customer journey map looks like from the full methodology. And I just point this out. We're partnered with a company called Demand Metric that does a lot of these marketing tools, et cetera. And one of the benefits you have of being a client at HighRoad is we give you access to all of these tools to help you kind of bridge this gap to the next level of learning of just, why do you need to figure out like what a good social marketing plan is or a good, digital demand strategy is. Why don't we just give you some tools to kind of get you started? So I'm going to give this to anybody who would like it also after the webinar, just so you have it, because it's really nice, because what it does is it marries up the customer journey also with the life cycle, with the buying life cycle, which again can be very handy in planning out how you want your members, let's say, to proceed through a particular transactional process. So side note on that. So in taking this user journey mapping with the multi-channel strategy we're talking about and being user-centric, today, right now, right after this call, take 10 minutes and just on a piece of paper like I just did, think about the journey map of your member experience or your prospective member experience of something like attending the annual meeting, going through the certification process, maybe becoming a volunteer and onboarding into that whole volunteer experience, actually coming onto your staff, so recruitment of new people and then onboarding your staff, bringing in a new board or board communications or the board experience over a 2-year life cycle, let's say. What is it to get your publication and interact with your publication over, let's say, a course of a month or your entire donation kind of donor process? So things you can use today with that journey mapping that really helps you to understand where, one, your organization is not really now operationally set up to be user-centric, right? As well as, two, what are some missing touch points that you could be doing today using different channels in being able to be that top-of-mind brand when that particular type of user that you're trying to target wants you. Okay, so now putting it all together with automation. Taking the same journey map we talked about, we can now look at, again, the same 6 touch points we have, and now we can say, boom, I'm the marketing communications person in my whole organization, and maybe I have 4 other jobs as well, but those are some of the things I do, which is typical. Where can I free up time? And so now I kind of take a different viewpoint to say, where can I save time? Which of these pieces can I automate? And I can say, boom, I could automate getting information out to people using a mobile app by creating a mobile app, right? And having automatic push notifications. I could automate having maybe the website updates automatically done, or having RSS feeds that completely pull content that's on my website and pull it and put it automatically into newsletters that are then sent out without me having to do anything. We call that some of the content automation. We have webinars later in the month. Actually, I think our webinar on that is tomorrow. So how do I not do posting content on the website and then sending it out in email newsletter and making those a long copy and paste process? How do we just automate that whole process so I'm not doing that? Instead, I'm spending time working on journey maps. Can I automate the process of sending people mobile messages and maybe voicemail messages? Say, hey, we're sending you a message about an email that's coming. Absolutely. There's tools to be able to automate that, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to go through my journey map, look to see how can I automate this now. So here's what I need to do. And again, the resource I need is time. I've got to get time back in my life. I call it live your life. I've got to find time back there, and I got to stop doing these redundant tasks. So that's a framework I'm going to take, and I'm going to look to target repetitive, low-value tasks. Now, if you're in the world of HighRoad, if you're taking the HighRoad like we are, that would absolutely equate to list management, who's a member, who's not a member, who likes particular topics, what do they want to opt in and out of, what's their subscriptions, you know, what is their taxonomy, being able to, like I said, automate, stop copying and pasting, stop copying and pasting. Just leave it right there. It's 2013. Pull in automatically from your website, pull it into your newsletter and send it. How do I automatically update all of my social media channels? How do I do things like take my Instagram and publish it automatically to my Facebook page? Those would be all those types of things where social media and email are very time-consuming for the repetitive, low-value tasks, and use technology to automate those things. And then also being able to track the content to channels. For example, yes, I want to put out my Instagram and launch it into Facebook, and then I want to be able to measure both my Instagram access of who's using it, as well as Facebook, as well as Twitter, as well as my publications, and I want to do it in one place. Can you do that? Yes, you can. So we want to automate so I don't have to go to 5 different places to go get data, which is one of the benefits of social media. How do I put it all together so that I can have that automated as well? So these are all great places to say, here's something that's smacking. It's saying to me, look, this is automation possibility, and I want to go through and I'm going to automate those things. And that's what our clients are now doing. Why? Main goal, reallocate the time for creative thinking so that you can expand those touch points so you can increase the likelihood that somebody is going to interact with your brand in the way that you want them to interact with or that they want to interact with. So you have time to be creative and not have the same message that you post on Facebook be the same one you post on Twitter. Don't do it. It means you don't understand the channels. So really, but you can't do it unless you have the time to do it, and that's why people make those shortcuts, et cetera. So we're freeing up the time of automation to be able to put it back and reinvest it back into our organization's member marketing communications. All right, wrapping it up, typical example of what that might look like, because again, it's all additive, and now it's about combining different communications to get the best possible result. Remember the Instagram and Facebook, and then maybe I put that into a newsletter? So I might have an email that goes out to announce an event. Then I might have a voicemail that introduces the event and asks the person or says on the voicemail, make sure that you look for an email in your inbox coming to you to talk about the event and when registration's opening. Why? Because again, people are busy. Some people might be okay with email. Some people need the voicemail to say, go look for the email. You might say that seems weird. Not really, because you know what we do nowadays? Think about it with social media. We get an email telling you what's happening on LinkedIn in a different group, and we use that email religiously because it's pulling it together and allowing you to know what's going on. Voicemail is actually very much coming back in style to be able to leave voicemail to say, hi, we're the organization X. We just want you to know this week in the newsletter we're sending you in your inbox, you'll find an article on this, this, and this. That way the person knows if those things appeal to them, boom, they open the email. What you also know is the email open rates are far more reflective of people who are really interested in those topics. And again, you can go further than that. Maybe you want to send them a mobile message text when the call for speakers are due. A common thing for any event organizer is you said call for sessions, and then here comes the deadline, and you got 40 people asking you, hey, can I have an extension because I didn't see this? You know, I live in Timbuktu and it's a different time zone, et cetera. Wouldn't it be great if you could just send out a mobile message 2 days ahead of time and say, hey, you've got 2 days left for this, you know, get on it? Yes. Why? Because most of your speakers absolutely are using their phone, so that could be something that could be very helpful for them to do. You have a pre-call for speakers. If you think you're going to speak, go ahead and register for your phone number, your name, and your email. and we'll make sure that we update you so you don't miss the deadline. How valuable is that for somebody who wants to speak at your conference? Very. So you could do a combination email, voicemail about when it's time to download the mobile app. Most organizations are investing in event mobile apps. The common problem they have is nobody uses them. Why? Because they don't know how to market them or roll them out to the market. You could add something specific in there that you get a voicemail, you get a text, you get an email, you get all three. If you don't get one, you get the other, some combination that makes sense to say, hey, listen, we've noticed you haven't downloaded your mobile app. You know, it's 2 weeks from now, and on the mobile app, there's going to be some really pertinent information you need on the venue, on what to wear, whatever it might be. There's a game in there. We're giving away a prize. Everybody who downloads it today gets a free cocktail, whatever it might be. But different ways of being able to interact with them that's multi-touchpoint, user-centric, et cetera. And again, maybe you have other, there's umpteen examples here we could put together. Take-home point, it is all about combining these communications that allow them to reinforce one another, to allow, again, the member to basically trip over you in whatever pathway they're taking so that they can make sure that, again, when I walk outside and I see that it looks like it might storm, the number one thing I'm thinking is the Weather Channel. And I'm going to now go interact with you in whatever channel that is appropriate to me, that's comfortable to me, and that makes sense to me. Okay, and that you, the Weather Channel, you, the organization, have made sure that you're using that channel, you are delivering content down that channel, and that you are there when they need you. And that's really kind of the crux of today's world of multi-touchpoint messaging and also just of overall modern marketing. So this is hopefully a couple of tools there we've done. So end of the day, this is really the flow you want to think of, becoming user-centric, looking at your channels, making sure you understand which channels to use, that you are multi-channel, then moving to your multi-touch point, doing your journey mapping, creating that flow, understanding where to automate so you can, again, get some of that time back. And if you follow these steps, that's when you're going to really start talking about true engagement. And that, of course, is what everybody's ultimate goal is. So we're wrapping that up, and I just want to let you know that tomorrow is indeed our day for talking about the remarketing of content, which I think is earth-shattering for the association market because so much time is spent in duplicating content and putting content from one channel to another to distribute it, so from your website, let's say, to your email system to send it. We're going to talk all about remarketing of content and automating that process so you're there when they need you, as well as we're going to talk next week about automating social marketing. So at this point, I'm happy to take any questions that we might have.
Great. Thank you. This is the Q&A segment of the training. Your participation is key to success, so please don't be afraid to ask any questions. You can ask a question via the web conference system simply by typing it into the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen and then clicking the call-out button or hitting enter on your keyboard. And while some of those questions come in, just a quick reminder that HighRoad Solution is an ASAE, CAE-approved provider of educational content. With your participation in the live presentation, you have earned your CAE credits. To be accounted for this, please enter your first and last name in the Q&A box so we ensure we can account for your participation. All right, first question here actually is about demand metric. Someone wants to know if you will be having a presentation about the demand metric tool.
Yeah, good question. So demand metric, just to reiterate, is one of our new content partners. They, bar none, have the best marketing templates and tools and content probably out there, especially in the digital side of things. We will have a rollout of that. It is, of course, only for HighRoad clients. It's one of our benefits to them, but we are able to give away some pieces of content here and again. But if you're a client, yep, be on the lookout for, of course, an email announcing that program. That should come out quite shortly.
Okay, great. Next question. I will have to admit my association is naive on social marketing. Can you recommend any good resources to go back from basic social marketing to working these channels on an advanced level?
Oh goodness, that is isn't that the question that everyone asks? I'll tell you what, I can't recommend one particular resource to do that, and certainly there's no one magic formula. But we've been hearing this a lot from our clients, and all of our webinars and content that we do is based on what people are asking us to produce for them. So we are adding a series to talk about those pieces of how do you go from like I have Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn to now doing something extraordinary and putting it into what's called conversation architecture. So I would say sit tight because that I think is coming in January. I think is the theme for the month, and we'll have a whole set of webinars for that and content for that. And also, if you can, check out our Automating Social Marketing webinar we're having on November 25th, because we will go through our platform, which is Shoutlet, about how to do some of this advanced features.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another question, are there any associations that you're aware of that are successfully using the journey maps?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I learned about journey mapping for the first time, or at least from association context, actually from ASAE, from American Society of Association Executives, because I was at our retreat for our meetings and exposition committee, and it came up about using journey mapping technique in putting together and looking at the 2014 annual meeting that's being planned. And so one of the challenges there was, how do we do it better? How do we get more people engaged? How do they use the tools better, use the mobile apps better, whatever it might be? And I had seen journey mapping done from, a buyer behavior and a transactional alignment process, from the corporate world. But I felt it was really wonderful that ASE brought that in. And actually, I think we just did it within the context. There was another association marketing gal that brought that into our meeting, and we were able to really successfully use it. And she had been using that for her own meetings to kind of be able to parse out where there were gaps in the experience and to help really clarify what else they could be doing to really create, not just a great experience, but like an exceptional experience. And so I'd say ASE, and I'm happy to look back, and I'll tell you now, anybody who's on the Meetings and Exposition Council has been using these as well, and that's quite a few associations. So yeah, it's definitely coming in, and I believe we're going to have more coming out of that from ASE in the next couple of months.
Okay. Looks like all the questions at this time. Suzanne, do you want to give a quick wrap-up, and then I can close things down?
Yeah, I'd say at the end of the day, being able to understand kind of the theoretical pieces of shifting towards being user-centric, being multi-touchpoint and multi-channel, and then taking some of these new techniques like journey mapping we've been talking about and taking them back and applying them into your own organization is going to be some of the keys to being able to really move forward with your organization. And I know that many people out there do feel frustrated. You're not alone. They feel like their organization's a bit stuck, and they want to, and they've added on social, but they feel like they're still not doing things effectively as they could be. And so automation is one of those other ways to leap forward because, like we said, we need more time. At the end of the day, we got to find more time because we just can't be creative without it. And so the other thing I would also say is if you're interested in these topics, stick close to HighRoad because we'll be rolling out some new case studies and whatnot as we go forward about our clients who are definitely the ones who are doing this type of work and having incredible results with being able to automate and to do more for their membership with either the same or fewer resources.
And thank you for your participation in today's webinar, Multi-Touchpoint Messaging. A special thank you to our speaker, Suzanne Carwin. In order to meet your educational content needs, we need to know what you think. Please take a moment and complete the short survey located in the important information box on the top right-hand side of your screen. Be sure to join us for our remaining November HighRoad U webinars focused on marketing automation, including tomorrow's presentation with Suzanne on who's got time to copy and paste. Click on the HighRoad U link in the links box to register today. If you have any additional questions or comments, please email us at support@highroadsolution.com. Today's session was recorded. You will receive an email within the next few days with a link to the webinar recording. Today's webinar is copyrighted by HighRoad Solution with all rights reserved. This concludes today's program. Thank you, and you may now disconnect.